July. It's the end of the second full week in June, and actually it's almost the end of the third. We have one more week to go and then some extra few days, and we're into July. It'll be the 4th of July before you know it. And then Halloween with Brad Steiger. Lots of things coming up very fast. If you have visited sightings.com, great. You'll know that it is an unusual destination full of all kinds of information that you'll find nowhere else, eclectic and common, and certainly information that will make you think, because it comes from all around the world 24 hours a day. Headline news, featured stories about UFOs, ETs, all kinds of things, science and technology. It's turning into quite a sight, and we thank you for the kind email. If you haven't been there, by all means, go and take a look and read and enjoy some of the stories. There certainly are a ton of them. Brian Vike is our, well, he is it. He is our investigator. He is the man who is really the driving force behind this, and we're happy to spend time with him once a month. We have special guests coming up in a few minutes as well. Okay, welcome back. Jeff Rense and Brian Vike. It is Sightings.com night, and we have a special guest to tell a story tonight that is really going to be amazing. Brian, why don't you introduce this young man to us, if you would?
You bet, yeah. Yeah, I have, I guess it's been over the years, this gentleman has been writing to me, and he sent some reports on what's been going on back in Manitoba. Recently, he sent me a very large story, his story, on UFO, ET, Men in Black, and these are his encounters, and he put this report together, and it's fascinating, and I believe we're going to have a wonderful guest here. He's a friend, I do consider him a friend, so I'd like to welcome you, Todd, to the show, and to Jeff's show here.
Hi, Brian.
Todd.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate being offered the opportunity to come on tonight, and hi, Jeff. It's great to meet you, too.
Hi, Todd. Thank you very much. The check is in the mail, so don't worry.
It's as Brian was saying, it's been years that he and I have been conversing through emails, and that's really been how we've been talking back and forth. And this is really the first time I verbally had the opportunity to say hi to him. So I feel very happy to be able to be on the show with both you guys. This is a real honor for me. Thank you.
That's nice. Isn't that nice when you can actually hear a voice after you've been writing to someone for a long time like you have and get to talk to them?
Yeah, it's funny, Jeff. I don't know why we didn't speak. There's no reason why. It's just that, I don't know, maybe we just getting around to it, because I know I was calling people all over the world, actually. So yeah, I'm glad, and it's nice to hear his voice, and sure happy you got on with us tonight, Todd, because it is an important and amazing story.
Very good. All right, Todd, what kind of a childhood did you have? Let's start out there at the beginning. Were you a normal kid with unusual things happening to you, or were you an abnormal kid with normal things happening to you?
I tried to be normal, I guess, and tried to fit in with all the kids. I was never really well received. I was always not good with kids. We'll put it that way. I was more a loner than anything, and always the first to be picked on and last to be picked for a team sort of thing. And my years going through, I had experienced a lot of weird things that I thought were normal because, well, growing up and first time through everything,
sure.
You didn't know what was really
kids,
abnormal,
of course.
and what was.
That's
Sorry?
supposed to be what childhood is about. You have no real preconceptions, and you're open to things, and because children are open to things, many more things manifest themselves to them. What are some of the things that happened to you that you now realize were a little unusual, and what age were you?
Well, to begin with, things started for me at a very early age. I was only months old when I was outside with my parents, and I would see these things in the sky, and what they were, I still don't know. I've seen various pictures on the internet of things that have been photographed in the sky, and they almost look lifelike, almost like a giant cell of some sort or something, but morphing, different colors, different shapes, different sizes.
Moving around?
Expand or contract.
So they'd move around?
Oh, yeah. They'd be in the sky for, a long time. It wasn't often that I'd see them, but, that was really the first thing that I picked up on when I was younger. I already knew what clouds were. We're talking, right, only months old, and I knew what clouds were and birds, and a whale. You know, I could picture them. I knew what they were when they were said to me, so I was aware at that sense. You know what I mean? But as things continued on in my life and I continued growing up and experiencing things, I sort of went into a paranormal sort of thing where I'd have dreams that would actually happen. I'd be able to see visions of the future, just small things, nothing major by any sort, but it would, you know, and it struck me as strange. Eventually I started to experience ghosts and such, but I don't really want to lead off away from why I'm here right now, because it's about UFOs and extraterrestrials, and that's really the only reason.
But let me say something about, if I might, and I'm sure Brian knows the name. Maybe, have you come across the name Trevor James Constable before? Trevor James Constable would be well worth you looking up. He is a brilliant man who in the 1950s and 60s used infrared film, 8mm film, to actually prove that there were large living things in our atmosphere that we couldn't see because they were in the infrared light spectrum. Now, I'm just suggesting this to you, that maybe as a child you had an ability to see infrared in that spectrum, and maybe you were seeing some of these things. He identified 8 or 10 different types of them, and they live there. Like fish in the sea, there are things living in the air. And if you think about it, it's not all that illogical. But his name is Trevor James Constable.
Okay, we'll have to check that out for sure. I mean, when I was growing up and seeing these things, my parents were oblivious to it. They never once mentioned anything about it to me, as, you know, how they would point out everything to me, you know, and give it a name. So I always found that strange.
Yeah. Well, that is. Very good. Okay, go ahead. By the way, you say your parents didn't see them. Now you know that if in fact you were seeing things that are up there, virtually no one does. It took infrared film to prove them, and Trevor has still pictures, and he's been on the program over the years. I need to get him back on.
I really have to check that out for sure. I've never heard of him or that.
Yep. Go ahead, Ben, with your story. So it sounded like you had great parents. At least that part of it was good.
Oh, for sure. They're very loving, very caring, and they give 200%, and they're still both around. So, and I love them very much. I was adopted, and they were my adopted parents, but
they're your parents.
They've always been my real parents in my heart. You know.
Forget the biology bit; they're your parents. That's what counts.
Exactly.
It's on a whole different. Give them an extra hug the next time you see them.
Oh, I try to for sure.
Good. All right. Okay, we'll be right back.
If we can,
hang on,
jump
Todd.
ahead a little bit.
Hold on. We're going to jump ahead, but we have to jump into a little commercial here first, Todd. So stand by if you would, please. This is really interesting, Brian. Obviously, a great story ahead, and already heard some interesting things. We should get Trevor on this program. Maybe we'll do that one time.
Be interesting.
Okay, be right back. Okay, let's get back to business. And the business is hearing a story from a young man that is going to be quite far-reaching in what it covers. All right, go ahead, Todd, please.
Hi, thank you. Okay, I'll just kind of paint the scene for you right now. It's late 1970s. I'm 11 years old, so I'm not really that young of a man, and I'm struggling through school, elementary school. A lot of it just doesn't make sense to me, and I'm sure that I'm just being pushed through the grades just to get out of the teacher's hairs. Anyway,
what was it that didn't make sense? Todd, excuse me.
Yes?
What was it that didn't make sense to you? Was it the academic part? Was it the socialization part? Was it the fact that you were in a constricted room with other kids being kind of having to do things you didn't want to do, or what was it?
Well, no, it was just everything that was being taught to me didn't make sense when I was to look on it on my own, and it just didn't. I mean, I didn't read very well. I did lousy in math. Everything bad. It didn't matter how hard I tried, and I tried my hardest, but it was a very frustrating time for me, for sure.
Got it.
So I made it through school again, and we're into summer, and probably about halfway through summer, I had something happen that really opened my eyes to things that I really hadn't had too much experience with yet. It was mid-August. It was a hot night out. I was sitting on the back step with my dad, and it was about 10:30 at night. And my father had got up from a conversation we were having and went inside to get something to drink in the house. And so just after he went inside, I started to notice off in the distance off to the west. We were living on the west side of town out in Brandon, Manitoba, and we had clear view without any light to impede the vision of the stars and such. So it was a very, you could see the whole night sky very easily. So my father had just gone inside, and I was looking off to the west when I noticed something approaching. At first thought, I had thought it was a very large plane, just because I knew it was massive. And as it got closer, I didn't see it being a plane. It was something totally different. I thought, well, because of its shape, it was rectangle. And I thought, well, maybe it was one of those large helicopters with the two propellers on them. We had a military base just off to the east of us, Shiloh, Manitoba, about half an hour from Brandon. And so I thought perhaps that's what it was. And it was getting closer, and it was getting very large. And I'm starting to realize this isn't a helicopter either. What is this? I had thought,
no one's around you at all?
No, It's just me outside on the back step, my father inside. And as it's getting closer, I even thought of a blimp. And it didn't even resemble a blimp at all. What it resembled was like just a large rectangle monolith sort of craft. I guess it to be about a mile wide and 2 miles long. It'd be a mothership by what people say. Anyway.
Gee, okay, hold on. Brian, check in with us here on the idea of rectangular craft. They're not uncommon. We have lots of reports of rectangles. This is certainly one of the big ones. Mothership.
Yeah, most definitely.
This could be, a great-grandmother's ship. This is a biggie. And the rectangular shape would appear to be evidence of, as we've talked before, yet perhaps another different kind of visiting species. This is their idea of transport. So that's fascinating, Todd, because we have had reports over the years of these enormous rectangles, not triangles, rectangles.
That's interesting. Yeah, I haven't run into any of those yet. I'll have to look deeper, I guess.
They're around, not a whole lot, and if I think George Filer had one in a recent Filer's Files, if I'm not mistaken, Brian. So
yeah, I haven't seen that one, but yeah, they definitely. I mean, when I sent a lot of reports, to yourself, Nat, and you posted them, there was a number of them. Like I said, they're not as well known or as the triangles or other types of craft, but definitely they are around and they are weird. I know we've had them up here over Babbitt Lake here. They've seen numerous times, and we're talking, again, extremely large. So they're around.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to know I'm not the only one that sees them. I'll tell you that.
Oh, good. That's why I brought it up.
Curiosity, too, Todd. When you seen this thing, was there any kind of lighting on it or
no,
color,
it was
dark maybe,
it was very
any kind of features you were able to see?
Night sky.
Say that again,
Sorry?
Todd, please.
It was very dark. It was very obvious against the night sky. I almost could see it itself, but
it was a black shape, blocking out the stars, kind of a thing.
Yes, the straight edges were very obvious. I mean, its shape was a very obvious thing. Now, by the time it was right overhead, I had realized my father still hadn't come out yet, and it seemed like it had been a long time. So I'm yelling for him to come out. And this ship's passing overhead, over top of the house, and I'm standing there yelling for him.
Todd, about how high? This is a very difficult question.
Geez. It's a long ways up.
Okay.
Probably about the height of a plane, however high they fly normally, just a regular airplane, propeller plane, sort of thing.
5,000, 10,000 feet, maybe. A mile or maybe a mile.
It was high. It wasn't near low as other things that I have encountered by any means.
Okay. All right. Very good. So, give me your age again. please?
At
this
the time?
Yeah.
I was 11 years old. It was the late 70s.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
And so my father still hadn't come out. I decided to run inside and grab him. This was too much. It was just going overhead. He had to see this. So I ran inside. He said, "You have to see this." And I ran outside, dragging him along. And I ran down the steps, and I said, "Look." And I looked up to the sky, and there was nothing there. It was just the stars. So I said, "It's got to be out front. We can see it leaving." So I grabbed him, and I dragged him around front. He was just running behind me. And I got out front, and there was nothing, just a clear night sky all around. And that was really my first encounter that made me think. But it wasn't long after that I had another run-in with another craft, except I found myself aboard it after I was abducted. It was with Men in Black that I had encountered them.
Oh, all right. Let's follow this story. It's getting to be pretty amazing already.
This was in 1981.
And you would have been how old?
Going on around 15 years old.
Okay, and nothing, we have to go to a break here, but you haven't reported anything else then? You didn't see anything else between the big rectangle and then what happened when you were 15?
Nope, my life was fairly calm for UFOs.
Okay, very good.
I continued on with the paranormal throughout it, but that was something that was normal for me.
All right. Okay, well, maybe we can get into some of that too. All right, we'll be right back.
Sure.
Okay, and right back with all of you, Brian Vike and yours truly, and Todd, our special guest. All right, Todd, so what happened when you were around 15 and you saw something and ended up seeing some folks dressed in black? This is very interesting.
Yeah, it was, as I say, the early 80s. This is well before the movies, the Men in Black, ever came out. I'll say that right off the top.
Mm-hmm.
I had never heard of Men in Black before in my life. In fact, I was never really into UFOs or anything like that growing up. But the only interest in space I had was the astronauts that would go up and supposedly to the moon and such if they did so. And I was pretty intrigued by that and just by the stars themselves. I loved watching the night sky every night, including the satellites and everything else that had movement to it. But it was the early 80s, and I was up at a lake in the Parkland region of Manitoba. My family was there with me, and we were staying out there for the summer. We had a trailer out there, and it was the middle of the week. There wasn't many people up at the lake, and it was probably around 11 o'clock at night. It was a hot night out, so I wasn't even going to try and sleep for a while yet. The tent was still too hot. Normally I stayed in the trailer with my parents, but it was just way too hot in there for me to be in there. So I decided to go for a walk and just kind of cool off and enjoy the night and the calm and the peace. And I had been walking for about 10 minutes, and I was strolling down a dirt road behind a row of cabins that were along the lake shore. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this black car pulled up right beside me. It startled me. It made me jump because I didn't even hear it coming. And the two doors on the passenger side opened up, and two men in black stepped out, and in an instant they were on me, and I couldn't believe how fast it had all occurred. They were dressed in black suits, black shoes, black hats. They even had sunglasses on, though it was dark out. They had white shirts. That's what made me notice how different colored their skin was. It almost had a blue tinge to it. And anyway, they were on me in an instant, and they grabbed me and pulled me towards the car. I dragged my feet along, pushing back, struggling against them, and they had me to the car fairly easily and quickly. I had my feet up against the car doors. Each, I'll call them Mibs, had their hands around my arms, one on each side of me, and were trying to force me in the car. Eventually, after, I don't know how long of a struggle, it had to have been at least 30 seconds to a minute, and they got me inside of the car. Next thing I knew, I was in between the two of them, sitting in the back seat. And nothing was being said at all. And the driver in the front looked back at me and looked at them, and it seemed almost like they were having a conversation, but there was no words being said at all. Nobody was making any noise at all.
Did he look like the other two?
Yeah, he looked exactly like the other two.
Did their facial features all look like they were identical, or were they just had the same color skin hue?
No, they all looked the same.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, like triplets.
For sure. Sorry?
Like triplets.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, anyway, I'm sitting between these two MIBs, and the one on my right pulls this giant syringe out. It appeared to come out of his jacket, inside jacket pocket. And he held it up towards the front, and I could see from the light emanating from the front that it was full of this dark, clear, golden liquid, and it was a huge syringe. If I was to compare it to something now, I would have to say it's used for a large animal. That's how big the vial was for it. Anyway, I started to struggle some more, and they quickly subdued me. I was in between the two of them, so there wasn't much of a struggle before the MIB on my right took the syringe and injected it into my upper torso part of my body.
Where?
And
where?
Pretty much in the center. I guess where your diaphragm might be, sort of thing.
In other words, below your heart.
Below your heart, around there.
No, I'm asking you. Was it below your heart?
Well, it's below your rib cage. You know,
okay.
Your middle part of your rib cage.
Sure.
Say about 3 inches, 2 inches.
That's just below your heart.
Okay.
Wow.
That's where it was.
And they didn't lift up your shirt or anything, I assume.
No.
They just right through your clothes?
Yeah. And I quickly lost consciousness. I don't know how long I was out for, but I came to, and I had thought I was still in the car. I could still see the road, but it was below me, and I wasn't thinking clearly to begin with. I was just becoming conscious, and I knew something was wrong, and it took me a little while to figure it out, but I was probably around 250 feet or so above this winding road, and I could see it snaking along. It was along a coastline, and there was large rocks at the bottom and very large waves crashing against the rocks, creating lots of white water. And I knew I was very far away from home because I'm a prairie boy. I stay in the middle of Canada, and I've yet to ever see the ocean. And I knew I was very far away from home, and I was thinking the ocean. And it was not very long after that I lost consciousness again. I came to the next morning. I found myself in my tent. And for the rest of that day, I was pretty much in a daze. And to this very day, over 30 years later, I still remember it like it happened yesterday. It's so very clear in my mind, everything. I did some looking on the internet, and the car was a mid to late 60s Cadillac Coupe de Ville sort of car. And I did some research more looking for answers on MIBs. I didn't know what to make of them, didn't know what to make of that. But this is years later that I was doing this research on the internet. And I had stumbled across an encounter a gentleman had in my hometown of Brandon in 1951, 30 years before I had my encounter about 60 miles north of Brandon. And this was the closest I had come to finding anybody that had an encounter, same sort of encounter as mine with MIBs, except his involved a silver disc craft as well. And I found it amazing out of all over the world and everything that goes on to have it happen in my hometown 31 years before I had my encounter not far north of the city. So
totally amazing, yeah.
It really made me open my eyes, but there were so many things going on. I didn't really I threw that to the back of my mind. I wrote it off. I couldn't make sense of any of it, and the best thing to do was to bury it, and that's what I did for years to come.
Any idea how long you were in their custody?
I really have no idea. I just know that I came to the next morning in my tent, and I didn't get there on my own. I know that.
Did you have a hole in your diaphragm? Any kind of a mark?
You know, to tell you the truth, I didn't even look.
Okay, no, not a surprise. So what happened during that time? You have a few mental images. Yeah.
Well, I mean, after the abduction, it was very, spotty. That was it. I mean, it was certainly had to do with whatever I was injected with or whatever was done to me that made me lose consciousness. So what happened after that during my time with them, I really have no idea.
Brian, this is a new one on me, an enormous syringe with dark gold, perhaps
clear
gold.
Liquid, yes.
What was it? What did you say, Todd?
I said, sorry, it was a dark golden clear liquid.
I've not heard this before. This is a unique one.
I haven't really gathered it. I've read some stuff around the internet on it, but it would have been very rare.
Right.
As for myself receiving anything like that, not on that with some kind of syringe or something or any kind of liquid like that. I have heard where people definitely have gone through similar stuff that Todd has, just maybe a little different with the syringe and whatnot. But Korean Stables was one of them, So it's there's always something new, and I think we keep saying that every time we're on the show and we have a guest. Steve, here's a new one for us, and it seems to be that little more comes out of stories time, and we gather a little more information. It's hard to try to put it all together, but we're finding that.
Right. Okay, we have just about a minute or two until the next break. So this event came and it went, and you decided to repress it or file it. No one to talk to.
Explain it, and
of course. And if you were to tell anyone, obviously the ridicule factor would have been way too much.
They look at you all weird and strange. And,
oh, sure.
What are you talking about?
And what about the folks? Were they ever in on any of the things you experienced up to that point in your life? And you mentioned paranormal things, and when we come back, I want to ask you just to sketch out a few of those things for us as well.
Okay.
Did your folks see anything? Experience anything? And
no,
nothing?
Not at that point in time.
Okay.
Later on in life they did, though.
Ah, all right. Brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I have one sister, but she never experienced anything as far as I know.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But when it comes to the mention of UFOs and extraterrestrials, my mother and my sister don't really like to talk about it, so I just leave it alone at that.
Does that suggest anything to you?
The possibility is there, but I really can't read into it.
Well said. Maybe they don't even have, if there is anything, easy access to it. They just know it's not something that they want to spend any time on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I have a hunch there are an awful lot of folks walking this planet who have had experiences that are so far off the table that they just will never talk about it.
Oh,
and we're glad to have you on.
There every time somebody opens their mouth to speak the truth, for sure.
Yeah. All right, stand by, Todd, if you would, and
sure.
We'll be right back with more in just a few minutes. Okay, great music, and we'll be stepping into hour number 2 on those chords. You like that music, Brian?
Awesome stuff.
Yeah,
you always do find some good music.
There's a lot of good music out there.
Oh.
All right, we are talking with Todd. And Todd, you mentioned the so-called paranormal, which is actually quite normal. Just most people don't have easy access to it, or if they do, they don't talk about it. So give us a couple of ideas, if you would, of some of the things you experienced as a youngster. Ghosts, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Well, one thing that I did encounter was, and it grew stronger as I went through the years, was being able to read people. I mean, of course everybody has intuition, but I was always able to pick up the intentions of people, whether it was good or bad, to harm or not, or to actually help and such. And as it went on, I could actually read people as in a lot more things, a lot deeper than just what their feelings were, but what their actual thoughts were and such.
What their motives were, how honest they were. Could you read truth and lies?
Oh, yes,
and all that?
yes. That liars and people who were sincere were the very easiest to read. And as I say, as it went on, it got to be a deeper sort of thing, and I was able to read intentions and read thoughts in regards to their motives or their what their intentions were and to do, you know what I mean? I could always tell the bad people anyway. But I was also experiencing ghosts, entities. Some people call them shadow people. I had a couple encounters when I was younger with them.
At home?
Yeah,
in the house?
in Brandon, alone, you know, parents away for the weekend, just hanging out, you know. When you say shadow
people, were these the kinds of things, Todd, that you would see out of the corner of your eye, or would you see them dead on and they would just be a black humanoid shape?
Well, you know what? Initially, that's how I always catch them, is out of the corner of my eye. But jumping ahead a bit, I did encounter one where I looked directly at it, and I actually started chasing it, thinking it was somebody in the house. And I searched the house high and low, looking positive that there was somebody in the house. But what I had chased was moving very, very quickly. There was no way I could have kept up with it as it ran through the kitchen and down the stairs, sort of thing. So that, I mean, yeah, I did have a couple times where, you know, it was more than just, you know, out of the corner of your eye sort of thing. But
that's
how
like
it always starts, you know. You can always just catch them out of the corner of your eye.
You were this is hot pursuit.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, I thought somebody was in the house.
You were chasing and something was running away from you.
Yeah, yeah.
That's pretty wild. Did at any time any of these shadow people have any texture to them, or were they just
No,
black?
they were, you know, I couldn't even tell if they were substance. They were certainly not see-through by any means, but it didn't look like they were of hard substance. It almost looked like dark static, you know what I mean? I don't know how...
Well, interesting. And about the same height as normal humans?
Around 6 foot.
So these were not the little hooded dwarf-like dark beings?
No.
Okay. All right, very good. This is fascinating.
Jeff, I don't know if you remember, but we had some guys on the program. It's going back maybe a couple of 3 years or whatever, and there were security on the bases, and they were getting radio calls from others on the base. They tell them to get the heck over here because something really strange was going on. And they had beams of light, supposedly from these ships that were sitting hovering. And in these beams of light, they had what these people called these shadow figures. They weren't solid or nothing like that, but they were caught in a beam, and then once they got out of that beam, they sort of like vanished. You know, so in other words, I don't know if they took off or nobody could see them. But I remember getting stuff in actually a few anyways, of those military reports of these strange critters being seen on the base. Weird.
Yeah, very strange. I do remember that. All right, Todd, please continue. Those are very interesting stories.
I went through my teen years, and I eventually grew up a bit and decided to head away from Manitoba, and I went out west and wanted to take up a career on air as a radio announcer. And so I went and took schooling for that and continued doing that for about around 6 months or so after I had finally gotten in. Mm-hmm. I headed out west. I ended up getting a job working for a network of stations that covered part of Alberta and part of northern BC as well. And this experience that I had coming up sort of got my mind thinking again of what I had experienced in the past. It wasn't a personal experience that I'm about to share, but I was on air. It was about 8 o'clock at night on a Friday night, and I was broadcasting via the Anarchy satellite to a total of 10 radio stations throughout the two provinces. Mm-hmm. And at 8 o'clock at night, all of a sudden, my phone lines just lit right up. We had an 800 number for all the towns to phone into to request songs if they wanted. So just like clockwork, just on an instant, all the phone lines lit up, and I was getting these phone calls from people from all over the province of BC and Alberta asking me what it was that they were seeing. They were calling in reporting a large triangular craft that had incredible speed. Now, I became excited because I was thinking about the things that I had encountered in the past. I hadn't really thought about them again because nothing come up again that made me think about them till then. So I kept by the window for the rest of the show, looking out, hoping I was going to see something too, but I never did. But at the rate these calls were coming in and the distance between each location from each call originating, the speed of this craft was well past the speed of sound. It was almost like an instant sort of thing where people were seeing it. So whatever it was traveling and stopping, traveling and stopping, traveling and stopping. I contacted the Air Force, Air Traffic, RCMP, and they had nothing to report of abnormal in the area. So I just kind of buried it away in the back of my mind and thought how interesting, and continued on with my career in radio for a few more years. It was about 2001. I was moving back from Alberta, and I was in Saskatoon at the time. I decided to take a trip to a northern lake in Saskatchewan. Summer was soon over, and I wanted to get in a bit of camping. I hadn't done so for a long time. And so I was out at the lake with my girlfriend. It was around midnight, and I was sitting on the picnic table looking up at one certain glowing object in the sky. I thought it was a star, actually, or at least a satellite, stable satellite. And I was just staring at it. My girlfriend was sitting with me. After a couple of minutes, she asked me what I was looking at. So I pointed it out to her. And in an instant, as soon as I pointed it out to her, all of a sudden there was a flash from this object that was way up. It was out of Earth's atmosphere, would be my guess anyway. And another glowing object came shooting out from the side of it. And it traveled for a short distance. All of a sudden it turned on a 45-degree angle and started down towards Earth. I stood up quickly when I realized this wasn't normal. Whatever I was seeing, it wasn't anything like I'd seen before.
What was the girl saying?
She wasn't saying much. She was just watching it on, trying to figure out what it was too.
Yeah. Now, if this is, I
was excited because I knew, wow, this isn't normal. So what is this? So
yeah, if this, Todd, if this was outside the Earth's atmosphere,
right?
It must have been a very large piece of hardware.
Yeah, well, yeah, I had originally thought a satellite, but I mean, it could have been much larger. That's true after having another projectile come out of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, please.
So, I'm standing up, I'm watching this thing coming down towards the Earth, and as it got close to the Earth, all of a sudden it started to slow down. And I lost sight of it not long after that, but I watched as it slowed right down as it got closer to the ground. And I thought for the rest of the night what it was I had seen, and then I still have no answers that really fit into what it could have been. But it wasn't a very close encounter by any means, but it was something that made me think anyway. It was not long after that I moved back out to Brandon in Manitoba again and be with my friends that I had seen for many years.
Yeah. Reunion time. Yeah. Hold on if you would. We have to pause just for a couple minutes, Todd, and we'll come back. Listening to just a little bit of Todd's life, and I'm sure there are some of you listening who may have had similar experiences who've never talked about them to anyone. Feel free to give Brian Vike a call if you want to make a report or just find a friendly voice to talk to. He's always happy to help if he's got the time. And when people repress these things over the years, they can do some nasty things sometimes. Be back in a minute. Okay, let's get right back to our conversation with Todd. All right, go ahead.
Hi. I moved back out to Manitoba in 2002 to be with my best friends. I hadn't seen them for years, and some of them had stuck around, so I was able to come back and hang out with them. You know, good friends are hard to find throughout life, and once you have them,
right,
try and keep them for sure. So one of my friends had been going up to one of the lakes in the Parkland region. It was about 30 miles from the lake where I had my Men in Black encounter. I started to go up there with them, and it was August of 2002 that we were up there. It was in the middle of the afternoon. It was probably around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We were out on the boat. There was me and two other buddies, and we were fishing. I was standing on the nose of the boat, and we were letting the boat drift. We didn't have the engine running or anything, and it was a really hot day, so we weren't catching much of anything. We were more or less just out there to enjoy being out there. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, there was a strong gust of wind, and I knew it was mostly sunny, so I thought I'd look up to see, the cloud that caused the wind, because clouds usually cause wind. So I looked to see why the big gust had happened, and I was very shocked to see above me in the sky was a silver disc. It was between 250 and 400 feet above me. I was trying to make sense of what I was looking at. At first I thought, is that the moon? No, that can't be the moon. What the heck is that? And I started to run through things in my mind of what it could possibly be. Is that a balloon? It's not a balloon. It's not. You were looking
right at the bottom of it, were you?
Sorry?
You were looking right at the bottom of it?
That's correct. It was directly above us.
Mm-hmm. What did your friends in the boat have to say?
Well, they hadn't even seen it yet.
Oh, okay.
And so I looked down at them, and they were both in their own world. And I said, look, up there. I said, there's a disc right above us. And looked back up at this disc, and it was just sitting in the sky there. It wasn't doing anything. It appeared to be almost a non-polished silver, almost a grayish silver sort of bottom to it. Mm-hmm. It wasn't reflective in any way. And I'm looking up at it just in total disbelief. I'm believing what I'm seeing with my own eyes. And I'm looking back down at my friends again, and I'm going, look up there. There's a disc right above us. And I don't even know if they heard me. They seemed almost intoxicated. They were incoherent as far as I could tell. They were not falling to their knees, but they were falling about the boat back and forth a bit. And
wow.
To me, it looked like they were moving in slow motion. That's how it all appeared to me. It looked like there was a time difference between my time and their time. And I had this really weird feeling over me, this energy or whatever it was that was coming off of the craft. And I focused back on the disc above us again. I couldn't make sense of what I was seeing, and I wanted to see what was going on with this disc. I watched for a short while longer, and it wasn't long before it started to move very gently and very slowly for maybe 2 seconds, and then in an instant, in a fraction of a second, it was gone. It shot straight up. I watched it just go, gone. Speed that we can't touch. Instant speed that would kill any human being. You know what I mean? From the G-force.
Sure. You were able to see the direction it went. It went up.
That's right. And I stood there confused for a short time, and I climbed back into the boat, and I'm talking to my friends, and they're starting to seem a bit more normal to me, and there was no more time difference at all. But I was asking about the disc, if they had seen it, and both of them refused to say anything about it. I don't know how they could not have seen it. I don't know how they could not have heard me, and I was pointing up to the sky. Anyway, it was a pretty quiet ride back home to the shore again. I felt very strange from this craft. The effects from whatever energy that surrounded us or me. I lost my appetite. I began to lose hair and clumps. My teeth became loose. I really thought I had radiation poisoning. I mean, that was the only thing I could come up with. And I really didn't know what to do about it. So I just kind of quietly endured it all and hoped that I would get better. I mean, what could I go and tell a doctor? You know, I saw the silver disc and now I'm really sick. So I endured all this, and I really hoped that I wasn't going to die. And it took a couple or few months, and I started to feel better, and things started to come back to normal a bit. But actually, it took years before things were as close to normal as they will ever be again.
Well,
for me.
when you say you felt like you were going to die, were you feeling? We all have a life force in our bodies. I guess that's the best term for it I can come up with, a life force. Did you feel that your life force was draining away from you? Is that what you were alluding to? Or was it just physical things that you were getting?
The entire sickness. I mean, I could still feel the effects of the energy on my body, and I knew that I was sick. I mean, it was obvious every day when I had clumps of hair falling out of my head and my teeth, each tooth becoming more loose, and I really didn't know how far it was going to go before I was. And
your friends never got sick at all?
Sorry?
Your friends never got sick at all?
No. No, it was just me.
Well, I don't know, Brian.
Yeah, I make a guess. Was he taken aboard that thing in the time? And who knows what happened?
It sounds like
so many other cases.
Yeah, they have a lot invested in him. They wouldn't want to make him really sick, you'd think.
You would think, yeah.
Yeah, hang on. We'll be back, folks, in just a minute. Okay, all right, we're back. You there, Todd?
I am. Hi.
Okay, very good. These, I'm trying to do a profile here, and this is quite an extremely wide-ranging series of events in your life, and what, I don't know, Brian, we have multidimensional issues here potentially. We have the strange scenario of him being abducted for a reason. There was a reason. He had value. He had value to them for something. And then there is an encounter, let's see, in which he obviously was damaged physically. Different group of people, different intelligence, don't know. Did you have any, one note I had written here, did you have any sense that you had any chunk of missing time during that fishing outing on the boat?
You know, I had thought about it, but there was really nothing that it could support anything because I had no watch on. I had no way to tell if there was actually any time difference or anything, any missing time or anything, so I can't say anything for sure.
Okay. All right, very good. Well, this is pretty wild. The disc itself, did it have any kind of marks on it, or was it just that unpolished silver from side to side, the whole thing?
No, there was no markings on it at all.
All right. And I had a question going back to the the rectangle you saw early on. Were there any lights on that in the night sky, or was it just black, the whole thing? No lights.
It was entirely black. But from the silhouette that I could see it, I mean, I could distinguish where the front of it was, where it actually went up to the top part of the craft. That's how obvious it was. It wasn't just total blackness, but there was a silhouette of everything.
Got it. Okay, all right. Pretty wild. And your friends, let me guess, your friends never talked about that disc, did they?
No.
Do you still see your friends?
Yep, I do. And
Good.
Actually, one of them has had numerous sightings with me and on his own since then, so I'm certainly not alone anymore.
Well, with that, Todd, because that's interesting right there, too. Are these encounters he has had, when you're talking about it, is this what started, say, before you knew him, or while he knew you and you guys were together?
Well, from what I understand, it's happened since we knew each other, since I was hanging out with him, since I got back.
There you go. That's weird, eh? Yeah. So he got aboard or got onto this here. Unreal. That's weird.
Actually, there's a few of my close friends. The same sort of thing has happened as well since.
Would that been those guys in the boat? Did they have any kind of experiences afterwards that you're aware of, or is it maybe some of them?
Just one fellow off the boat, and
okay.
He's seen numerous crafts with me, and objects, and he's also seen things on his own as well, but not nearly as close as I have.
Well, at least you got some guys you can talk to over this without them thinking you're crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well,
Which is good,
I have some very, very, very understanding friends that are very supportive, and makes life so much easier. It does.
Awesome, that's good. And you know what? You know what's really weird, Jeff? Do you remember a case there? Because it was as Todd explains what's going on here in this report. you know, so many things flash back, man. We had a guest on there on your show, and him and his girlfriend, they came back to his mother's and dad's place, but they stayed in the guest house, and they had their experience. And I remember when they were coming out, because he carried her girlfriend from the guest house to the main house, and he got to the glass doors. He wondered why they let the cat out. The cat wasn't supposed to be out. But when he watched the cat, it wasn't moving. Just like Todd was mentioning, it was kind of like frozen in time. It was, you know, that just bounced in my head. I couldn't believe what he was talking about, because there's some really interesting things that you connect with other reports. It's fascinating, really. Although, you know, it can be kind of frightening and scary, and you know, to go through this, of course.
Now, your friends, Todd, have had experiences as well. Do you even dare connect those to your life experiences in any way? Because they were your friends, might they have come under this umbrella of being interacted with?
Actually, that's pretty much the way my mind is thinking about it, simply because throughout their lifetimes they had never seen anything until I started to have my close encounters, and sharing my experiences with them and talking to them about it perhaps helped them to maybe be more perceptive and notice things more, instead of, you know, how most people look down or look straight ahead. Hardly ever do we ever look up. So, I mean, perhaps that might be a factor to it. But I think it might be more than that, because it was just a few years ago, my father, he had a fairly close encounter, too, with a craft that was only about 25 feet off the ground. And he had never seen anything in his 70 years of life up until that point, too. So I do strongly feel that there might be some sort of a connection there. I can't say for sure, though.
Well, anybody wanting to hang out with Todd for a while might have some interesting experiences then.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, very good. Go ahead. This is really quite a wide-ranging, as I said, panorama of events and experiences. And I suspect there are quite a few more. Go on, Todd.
Okay. Now, it was after the silver disc craft, I pretty much spent the winter in Brandon and stayed away from the lake. And later on in the springtime, my best friend and I went back up to the region, and we found an old Ukrainian log homestead that we decided we were going to take down and resurrect over at the lake.
So, neat. All right, hold on, please, Todd. We have to take a break again. We'll come right back and pick up the story. What kind of a log home was this again?
It's a 100-year-old, 1900 old Ukrainian log homestead from the Ukrainian settlers when they first came.
Very interesting. All right. Back in just a couple minutes. Okay, and we're back talking with Todd. Brian Vike and I, we want to invite you to Sightings.com. It's back up and running and looking great, thanks to James and Andy and Brian's work. And it is 24 hours a day. The latest UFO ET news from around the world. All right. Todd, please go ahead.
Okay, we're skipping ahead to the spring after my encounter with a disc in the August before that. I had finally gotten over some of my illness. My hair stopped falling out. My teeth weren't becoming any more loose. And I was feeling a bit more better, more healthier. I didn't have that sickening feeling that I had. My buddy and I went up to the Parkland region. As I said, we found an old Ukrainian log homestead that we fell in love with, and we thought it would look wonderful up at the lake. So we decided to take it down and move it log by log and resurrect it back at the lake. So that's how we spent most of our time doing that. I always had the silver disc in my mind all the time while I was at the lake, because, well, I had to be more aware of things around there for some reason. I just couldn't put myself at total ease when I was working there. We continued on that for 3 years. I never saw anything more, and I became more at ease. I became more relaxed. I really enjoy the lake. It's a very tranquil place. On our part of the lake, there's no electricity. There's very few people around. There's farmers on the outskirts and wildlife throughout the entire area, from bobcats and lynx to cougar and bears. So it's very diverse in wildlife out there. 3 years had passed, and I found myself at the lake, enjoying the clear night and the calm nights. The water was always calm, like a sheet of glass. It was very peaceful, just very tranquil, great for the soul. And I'd spend my nights laying on the nose of the boat, looking up at the stars every night that I had a chance. And I became very accustomed to the night sky when I was younger. And it was like being at home again and just getting lost in the stars in the Milky Way.
You're pretty friendly up there, huh?
It is. I mean, the stars, everything's so welcoming, and the people out there are unique. They're very one-of-a-kind, very welcoming, accepting, great, down-to-earth people that are very honest and sincere. I can't think of a better place to be anywhere in this world, to tell you the truth.
Wow.
But skipping ahead is August 2005, and I'm out on the boat. I've been looking at the stars for a couple hours, and I was looking off to the southeast part of the sky when all of a sudden there was a bright object off to my right. And initially I thought it was some very bright satellite or some bright Earth object of some sort. And I was actually rather perturbed over the whole thing. This light was taking away from the beauty of the night sky. So I looked over, and what I saw was a elongated diamond object in the sky. It was glowing white light. And my first thought was a jet landing light. I don't know why, but that was what my thought was. And I'm looking at it, and no, this isn't a jet landing light. There's no airports for hours and hours away. And all of a sudden it got brighter. And I thought, well, maybe this is a meteor. And I'm thinking, this is way too large. This is not moving. It's just sitting in the sky. And I'm looking at it. I stand up on the boat. What the heck is this? And this thing's, well, probably around 100 feet, 150 feet off of the ground, and around 40 to 60 yards away. And it's not making a sound. It's just getting brighter and brighter. And the hair is standing up on my arms. I got goosebumps. My heart's starting to just race. I don't know what the heck this is. I don't know what's going on. But I have this really strange feeling coming over me, like danger is very close by, and I shouldn't be just standing there looking at this. The craft became brighter and brighter, and all of a sudden it seemed like I was caught up in a white beam of light. It surrounded the entire area of the boat I was on, the entire lake area, like probably a 15 to 20 yards diameter. And I was ready to jump off the boat, jump in the water, run on shore, and just run into the trees and get the heck away from there. And my heart was in my throat. I was ready to panic, and I had total fear going through my body. I was at the point where I was about to leap off the boat, and all of a sudden I wasn't. I found myself just standing there looking at this elongated diamond craft in the sky. The intensity of the light was still there, but it was starting to let off. The beam was no longer around me, and the craft slowly went back to its original light intensity. Everything is still deadly silent, and my heart not racing near as fast as it was, but still racing fast as I'm looking there at this craft, this object in the sky. And all of a sudden it started to move, much like the silver disc did. It was very gently, slowly moving for about 2 seconds after it had been sitting there for I don't know how long. And then after the 2 seconds, in an instant, in a fraction of a second, faster than it takes for a blink of an eye, it moved away from me upwards and towards the west, and it continued straight ahead of me. And this is the only reason I could see where it went, was because it went ahead of me. Had it gone off to the side, it would have been an instant blur and I wouldn't have seen a thing. But I followed it. In an instant, it went from as far away it was from me to at least 25 miles in a tenth of a second. It started to curve upwards, and then it shot straight up out of the atmosphere. Mm-hmm. I stood there very
what do you
shocked
say?
Over the entire thing. Mm. My heartbeat slowly slowing down, the adrenaline still pumping through my body, and I knew something had happened. I didn't know what. when I knew something, I had missed something, because I was ready to jump off of the boat, and all of a sudden I wasn't. And it really freaked me out, to say the least. I went back into the cabin and I wrote it down. I always write down everything whenever I see something now. As soon as I get a chance to get a paper and pen, I write it down so I don't forget anything at all the details. So that's what I did. Calmed myself down and wrote down as best I could what I had seen, experienced.
You know what? It doesn't sound to me, Brian, like Todd has been linked to the same group at all. It sounds like a lot of different groups have had a shot at him and know who he is, and have been studying or otherwise interacting with him for reasons we'll never understand. But this is just
it seems to be an awful lot of different craft so far that have been, coming to visit and
right.
Whatever they're doing.
Well, he's got a rectangle. He's got a diamond-shaped craft. He's got a disc.
Got a disc.
Yeah.
You got three things right there, which are unusual. But who knows? But you could be right, Jeff. They could be different ones for whatever reason, coming to visit and doing whatever they are doing for something for their own benefit, or who knows, or being treated like cattle. Todd, when all these things are going on and afterwards, when you can sit sort of back and reflect on it. Well, I guess in the one case with your teeth all being loose and sort of, felt really sick and ill. But other than that, do you get the feeling that these are here for a bad purpose, a good purpose? I don't know if you can answer that or not. But what's your feeling on that?
At that point in time in my life, I wouldn't be able to answer that question. But today,
okay, no, that's fine. Yeah, it's kind of when you throw it there, you see what happens, eh? But yeah, because you've had the bad experience. The rest, well, so far it doesn't seem really horrible. Like we hear some cases, but the one we were definitely sick and ill with the teeth and your hair loss and teeth loss, or not teeth loss, but everything going goofy there. It's that's definitely not a good thing that's happened to you anyway.
I'll say that they're here not to protect us, but they're here because they have to be. They're responsible for us. That's all I can really say.
Responsible? Where they better become more active, or we're going to destroy the planet completely.
No, we're doing a good job of that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. They're not. I don't think they're here to save us, and they're not here to. I mean, as we all have seen in the past from people sharing their experiences in military, we know that they've shut down nuclear facilities and disarmed many nuclear warheads in the past. So, I mean, it's obvious that they don't want a nuclear war to happen now. For whatever other reason, I don't know, but I got the impression that they're not here as protectors for us. They're here because they're responsible for us in a way as us being here. They have to make sure that we don't totally annihilate ourselves where we are no longer here.
Interesting concept.
When you think back, because I know a lot of the stuff that I have received over the years has definitely been negative, but it's kind of nice to see, what your thoughts are on it, and feel what your impression of these beings are and why they're here. And like Jeff said, boy, something better happen if it was going to happen, because the planet seems to be slipping away between our fingers real quick. And there's going to be a lot of people ill.
Okay, hang on, gang. We'll be back in just a few minutes, and getting to know Todd's life pretty well. This is very interesting, and more ahead. So stay tuned, and Brian Vike and I will be right back with you. All right, we're back. I'm going to make that into a longer piece and keep listening to these very interesting cosmic pieces of music and going out there. Does it sound good to you, Todd?
It sounds awesome. It's eerie music.
Yeah. Well, you've had kind of an eerie life, and again, it seems to me, if I had to handicap this thing, Brian, I would say that Todd is probably very well known among a bunch of different, or a number of different visitors. And
I would say, it makes sense.
Yeah, it's just not like Well, I've had the same encounter with the same people since I was 3, and, they're,
Right.
which we've heard too. He's had such a panoply of experiences, which is remarkable. Go ahead, Todd, please.
Okay, I'm going to talk about when I had an awakening, sort of. Some memories came flowing back to me in regards to being on board the craft. I had a back injury from a work-related injury, and I used to do a lot of meditation to help alleviate the pain and the frustrations, and it was years of therapy and such, going through pain, living in pain every day, and to this day I still have pain, but I learned to harness it with my mind and kind of alleviate some of the pain. I'm really not one for taking pills and painkillers and that. I don't like them, so I try and stay clear of them. So one night I was relaxing and clearing my mind and getting into meditation. I had my heartbeat slowed down and my blood flowed down, and I was to the point where I needed to be when all of a sudden I had all these memories come flooding in, and it shocked me out of my calm state, and it really it scared me to reality that I had not really known before that. I remember being on board a craft with what many call the Greys, the shorter species of
Sure.
extraterrestrials with larger heads.
Mm-hmm.
My memories started up at a point where I had already been on the craft for some time, and for whatever reason I was there for, it was past already. But I found myself sitting on the floor in a circular room. The entire room wasn't lit up very bright. It was an ambient type of light, but there was no source for the light at all. There was no light bulbs or anything in the ceiling or wall or anything that I could see, but I was sitting there with my back to the wall, and I was naked. I had my knees pulled up to my chest and my arms wrapped around my legs, and my face was pressed into my knees. I looked up, and what I saw standing there were 4 beings. They were short, very skinny, with very large heads compared to their bodies, and their fingers were very long compared to their bodies, too. They had very large, dark eyes, and looking at them, I could almost stare into their soulless lives. They're not like us at all. When you're with them, you end up in their mind. They end up in your mind. And
Is it a pleasant thing? Is it interesting? Is it intrusive? Is it irritating?
It's intrusive, certainly. Somebody's in your mind, and you never invited them in to begin with.
And there's nothing really pleasant, like they're not telling jokes and saying, hey,
no, I mean, it's the entire, they're alien. They're called alien for a reason. They are nothing like us, and even their minds are nothing like us at all. I mean, we're emotion. They seem to be emotionless. Anyway, I was sitting there, and I knew they were done with me. They couldn't care less about me being there as I was sitting there watching them. And the impression I got was the way we would look upon a fly on a wall in the room while we work is how they looked upon me while I was sitting there. I just wanted them gone. I didn't want to be there anymore. I didn't want them to touch me. I didn't want to have anything to do with them. I knew it wasn't right being there. And none of it that I had ever been told or talked about by people that I know of authority, my parents, religious people, science, governments, they all said that these beings are not real and don't exist, yet I was sitting there in a room that has things I've all my life to believe didn't exist. So, I was sitting there. Sorry?
I say it's an eye opener for sure. Now, you when you stand up and that, you got I guess a little bit to look around that room or the inside the craft.
Yeah, the inside of the room appeared to be about 30 feet across. There was a console, and it wasn't very high, probably around 3 feet off of the floor. There were 4 grays that were standing around it, and they seemed pretty preoccupied with whatever they were. I knew that there was an examination table in the same room, and it was no longer visible there. It becomes part of the craft when it's not in use. I don't know how I know that, because I don't remember ever being on it, but I knew it was there, and it was now gone. I would probably assume the same for their control panel or console or whatever. It probably becomes part of the ship when it's not in use, but the details of the interior are still pretty clear. It was probably around 23 degrees Celsius inside of there. The room was made of some sort of metal or something like that. It wasn't cold to touch, but it was a dark blue and almost appeared pearl-like when looking at it from when you were moving and looking at it. It was nothing like I'd ever seen before.
Was it sparsely furnished, as it were, or were there lots of things in there? No, it was pretty much empty. There was nothing around at all, except for what I mentioned in the middle with the grays standing around. Weird. Yeah, I would guess that everything becomes part of the ship when it's not in use. See, the entire room, it was a round room, but the ceiling and the wall and the floor, they were all curved and they flowed into each other. It was like being in a flattened bubble, if you know what I mean. Yep, there was no separation to the walls or the ceiling or the floor. And as I said, everything flowed into each other. No corners, no edges at all. Everything was smooth. There was no sharp edges at all. No seams, no anything. No seams, no 2x4s nailed into the roof, nothing.
No, nothing at all. It was a very smooth surface.
No chairs, no benches, nothing. Just bizarre.
That console in the middle, and that was it.
Was somebody at the console?
Sorry?
Was one of them at the console working it?
There were 4 of them standing at it.
Were they doing things with it?
They were doing things, yep. When they were moving around. They were preoccupied with whatever they were doing, I know that, and their concern with me was well past. And I just didn't want to be sitting there anymore. I knew they were done with me, and I wanted to get out.
They must have read your thoughts. Did they respond to them?
Yeah, pretty much, I think. I put my head back down on my knees and pulled my knees closer to my chest, and I cried, and all I wanted to do was get out. I didn't want to see them anymore. I didn't want to stare into their black, soulless eyes, and then things finally went black for me, and that was the memory I was left with. Did you have a feeling that some say that they are a servant class of I won't use the word droid, but I'll throw it out there to give you the impression. Are they a race unto themselves? Well, I don't know. I mean, I've only seen them. I've done lots and lots of research into the entire subject matter of UFOs and ETs ever since, the Silver Disc encounter. It's become a very active part of my life. I have to try and come up with reasons on why things are occurring as they are. If not for me, for everybody else, to help them see what's going on. From what I see, I mean, people laugh at the thought of reptilians, the species reptilians, but they seem to be a very predominant species in the early part of our history in this world, and now it's not that way. It seems to be the greys.
Then is it possible that the reptilians or whatever are using this race to do their experimental work, because you've had so many, different objects and different craft. I don't know how many they might have, but just looking at that aspect of it and thinking, and then you bring up the reptilians. Yeah.
Hang on, Brian. We'll be right back in just a minute. Okay, let's get back to a very interesting life. This young man, Todd, has lived through things that would leave a lot of people just mute. Fortunately, he is not, and he is sharing an amazing amount of material with us, and would like to hear more. Todd, please.
I'm not really sure where I should pick up from, because I know we're kind of limited for time, and I have so many encounters that I do want to share. But
another half an hour, so just get to as many as you can.
The next encounter that I had was later on during the year, I was with a friend of mine, my best friend that I was building that log home with, or resurrecting it with. We had gone out to Ontario, east of Manitoba, to do some transport of logs for a friend of ours. And we were coming back and just into the Manitoba border once again, heading west. It was around 7:30 at night, August 27th to be exact. So the sky was clear, and there was still much light out. It wasn't near dark yet. I had looked up to the sky to the north and above, and I saw this backwards sea in the sky. It was white. At first, I thought a contrail from a jet or something, or a very strange-looking cloud. And I watched it for a few minutes, and it didn't seem to dissipate, and it was staying this exact same, and it seemed to be almost moving. As my buddy was driving along, I pointed up to him, and I said, "What do you think that is?" And he really didn't have any idea what to make of it either. I'd never seen anything like it. It was pretty high distance up. I would say probably around the height of a jet airliner, but as we were traveling, I noticed that it was gaining distance from us, and we were traveling at approximately 110 kilometers an hour, and it was still gaining distance. I ended up watching this for about 45 minutes, trying to come up with what it could be. I actually watched this large jet airliner pass right by it. It was heading east while this object was heading west, and it came so close there was no way that the pilots or anybody on the jet could have missed seeing it. It just seemed like, I thought to myself, how could they just, not see that?
Right.
So I sat there watching it with my buddy as we continued driving west, and it continued to pull away from us, heading in the same direction. It never altered course. And eventually it just got so far away we lost it in the horizon. And I found it to be a very peculiar sight. But it was as near as other things that I had seen, but still one for my books anyway. A little while later, we'll go up to September 2nd in 2005. Summer was coming to an end and fall was already setting in, and I had been working on the cabin all day with my buddy. We went to the south end of the lake for a quick supper and a shower at the campground down there, seeing as we don't have the luxury of that kind of stuff on the north side. We were traveling north after we had our food and showers, and we're heading back to the cabin. And we're coming up to the property. We just came on top of a hill when all of a sudden my buddy slammed on the brakes. He was the first one to see this in the sky, and he said, "What is that?" I looked over, and just hanging above the north side of our lake, pretty much where our cabin is, our campsite is, was this very large orange sphere. And it was probably about 40 yards above the north shore, and how big it was is really hard to say. It was larger than our cabin, and our cabin's 25 feet by 25 feet. So I'd probably about 40 feet across, at least 40 feet in diameter, and it seemed to be orange itself. It wasn't glowing orange light, but the object itself, the sphere itself, seemed to be orange. So we
well, that's okay. Now you couldn't see through it. It wasn't translucent. It appeared to be solid, right? You have seen so many of the classic shapes, objects that I can remember. It's just remarkable, Brian Vike, that one man could have this many and this varied an experiential ledger. I mean, he's seen it all.
I tell you, every time I see something new, it doesn't stop shocking me, and my heart rate still starts pounding, and it's all each time is a new experience. It's never the same, I know that, and I really never know what to expect, and I certainly never am comfortable around it when it happens at all.
I understand. So they haven't, and all we can do is guess, but let's say they're in several different groups. They have not endeared themselves to you. Or is there one of these experiences, is there one event that has left you feeling okay?
Okay?
Okay. Not repulsed, not disgusted, not like you don't want to do it again. I mean, they're always exciting and scary, and you get your heart rate going, but have you had the feeling that any of these beings are friendly and kindly toward you? Or is it all business?
Well, no, I'll say that they're here because they have to be. They're responsible for our being here. They're not here to be our protectors or our watchers. They will intervene, apparently, at times, but they're not here to be our saviors by any means. And what I was left with during one of my encounters, I'm going to say, seeded with knowledge of things to come. I won't say I was told it because I was never told it, but it was placed inside of me.
All right. Well, hang on, Todd, if you would, please. And you're stepping into the area that most people want to hear about, the future. And whatever you think it may or may not be, we're all ears. So if you'd like to share that with us, and we'll do that in just a few minutes. So hang on. It's quite an amazing story. Todd is our special guest. Okay, Todd, let's kind of go along with your statements that you were given a sense of where we were headed potentially on this planet.
Yeah, I was seeded with knowledge, and that's the best I can say. I wasn't actually told anything. Well, if I was, I don't remember it. I just had it.
Right.
Inside of me. And what I know through them is that there is an event to come, and it will be the largest, the most important event in the history of mankind on Earth, and it will involve them and humans. I wasn't given a time frame. I wasn't told exactly what, but there was going to be more and more crafts to be seen, and eventually larger and larger crafts to be seen. It was only a few years ago that I had this seeded in me, and I didn't pay any attention in 2012, never did until 2 years ago, and I kind of clued in, it clicked that this is very close to the time frame that I was given. I can't say it is the exact time frame. I'm not saying it is 2012, but a very close proximity to that time area is what I feel inside of me from them. Something that I feel that we should have known our entire existence here. It was kept secret. By whom, I don't know. For what reasons? Probably to gain power and control, as everything is. But anyway, that's pretty much speculation, but it's a feeling that I have inside me that we have never been alone in our entire existence on this planet. So,
well, I agree, and I think most people listening would. My only comment would be I wish that they would take a far more active role in bringing this species forward in what we commonly think is a positive evolutionary sense. We are going backwards. We are dumbing ourselves down at the hands of people who are not normal humans. In my view, they're evil. They are not us. They have no morals. They're psychopathic. They laugh at us who attempt to live by a moral baseline. They think it's a weakness. So they have us at a distinct advantage. So intervention, I would welcome it. I think 1951 film, The Day the Earth Stood Still, is the best possible scenario. Give people a deadline, the world, or else. And that's probably the only thing that will work. Unless they want to get into genetic manipulation, which may well be what the hybrid program is about, that this current configuration of Homo sapiens is going to die out, to be replaced with the hybrids, which hopefully will have less hostility in them. I don't know. Any thoughts along those lines?
I really can't say for sure, but from my sharing, I found a few people in my years that I know for sure have had actual contact as well, been abducted. And it seems every person brings back a little piece of the puzzle. Now, unfortunately, the way that we are addressed by many, and how ridicule is always there, and people are attacked verbally when they try and share the truth, that directly prevents the truth from coming out. If everybody was to share that little piece of information that they may carry, I think we would have a very clear picture in regards to what is taking place on this planet, what has taken place, and what is going to take place. But it can't happen that way because there's powers that be that make sure it is not going to be that way.
Oh. All right. And as far as catastrophe goes, when you say a big event, I think if we were to poll humankind, it would be a no-brainer that people would say, yes, there are visitors. I think most people, I mean, they've been conditioned for decades with the media to accept the fact, at least subliminally, that we're being visited. So it doesn't seem to me to be a very difficult deal. Now, if there's an intervention in another war, what did we do in the last century? We killed well over 100 million people. Well, maybe 150 million. We're in trouble. We're fighting wars now that are not wars, they're just extermination campaigns, genocide. It was leaked that Afghanistan has not $1 trillion in mineral resources, but $3 trillion. Right. Somebody let that out. So these are just wars of resource conquest, genocide. People mean nothing. That's what I mean. The control element on this planet is not us. It's something else. And whatever it is, I have no use for it whatsoever. And anyway, Brian, anything to say to this?
Oh, yeah, right. Talk about a mess the world's in. We need, like you said, some intervention if it's going to happen. Let's get at it because I can't see things going on the way it is too much longer or too many more years anyway. Something's got to happen, and something's got to take place, or happen real quick.
What we have done right now with BP, we have a potential extinction level event going on.
Absolutely correct.
We have drilled where we shouldn't have drilled, far too deep. If you read the stories at Rense.com, you'll understand that the oil is radioactive. Most oil we drill from normal oil reservoirs close to the surface, oil pools, oil deposits, has just a trace of radioactivity. The uranium and thorium that are apparently extremely plentiful deep down in the Earth's mantle, its crust, decay over time. And they are slowly pushed upward with the oil, which pools in these oil fields. But what we've drilled into now is more or less the virgin territory. God only knows how deep it goes beyond where they drilled. It could be a worldwide layer of radioactive petroleum. Forget fossil fuel. If anybody says fossil fuel, straighten them out. Nothing to do with that. That was a lie from day one. We're in trouble. We're in big trouble. The methane gas, the benzene. The methane gas is so big now that if that were to ignite, it would be a catastrophic issue. The first big hurricane that goes through there is going to spread that oil all over the Gulf or wherever it makes landfall. We have really put our finger in a place we never should have. And the 20-inch pipe opened the doors, potentially, to hell, as far as this planet goes. The land around that has already subsided. The amount of oil that's come out of there has left a gap. Nature will always fill a gap. With what? I don't know. We don't know if the pressure will increase. We have no idea. It could. It could go on forever. The oceans could turn black. Let's hope not. All right, we'll be right back. All right, let's get back. Our final segment. It's been a long night, but just fascinating with Todd. Anything else about your folks and their experiences? Have they traded stories with you and said, I don't know, but it's sure going on, and why they picked our family, we don't know. What kinds of things are going on with the folks?
Well, specifically with my father, as I said, he had a close encounter a few years ago. He's living in Saskatoon, and he was down in the valley by the river. He was coming up one of the roads away from the valley, and he noticed an object that was about 25 feet off of the ground. He was only half a city block away from it, and originally he thought maybe it was Christmas lights on a tree or something, but he soon realized that this object was 25 feet above the ground on its own without being supported by anything. He was quick to realize that it was a craft. He slowed his vehicle right down, rolled down his window, and couldn't hear a sound at all, but he had a very close view of it, and he said it seemed to be scanning. They were looking for something, and they couldn't find it, so they continued on down towards the valley. He lost sight of it again. But his whole encounter, he says, only lasted about a minute to minute and a half, but I've gone over it quite a few times with him, and it took at least 5 to 10 minutes, and there's time missing, and he doesn't realize it, but it made me see that things are going on for my family as well. So that worries me. I don't want anything to happen to my family at all. If I can, I will take the full brunt of it over them, but I don't want my family involved in anything that I've had to go through.
Wow. When was the most recent event that has occurred to you in your life?
My last close encounter was actually last weekend at the lake.
What happened? Wow.
I had a close encounter with a glowing orange sphere. This one was very close to me. It was only maybe 25 feet off the ground at the most.
Different than the other one.
Yeah, this one was small. It was nothing like the other one at all. And I was perhaps 20 feet away from it at the most.
Anybody around you?
I had one friend that caught a glimpse of it, but I had a couple friends that were down by the fire. I ran to see it. I didn't call them. I watched it for a couple minutes, and I got a very good view of it. It was nothing like I'd seen before. Actually, I sent the sighting in to Brian, so I also have a diagram with it in regards to its body surface, what it appeared like. But I was very happy. The next day, I talked to a good friend of mine who's lived out in the region, that area, for all his life. He's 80 years old. And I was telling him about this glowing sphere that I encountered. And before I could get many words out, he cut me off and said, I saw it last night, too. And he had seen it on the west side of the lake coming up towards the north. So eventually it came across, and that's where I encountered it. But I'll tell you right now, the entire Parkland region is very heavily inundated with UFO activity and extraterrestrials. The locals keep it very private and very quiet. They don't like talking about it. It took me 5 years of being there and sharing my experiences before I was finally welcomed into the ring sort of thing, where they decided that it was safe to tell me about what they had seen as well. And these crafts and things have been going on for over 80 years out there. It's probably one of the best kept UFO secrets in Canadian history. That's my own opinion. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who see crafts, who have seen crafts, that know people that have seen crafts, and it's not unusual to see something in the sky. What I had seen last weekend, the locals there call walking lights or dancing lights. They're seen by many people. Usually they're lights that are bouncing up and down as they go through trees. They're hovering above the ground, anywhere between 5 and 6 feet and 25 feet above the ground. Usually there's more than one of them at a time. Me, that was the first time I had ever seen anything like it. And as far as I know, nobody else had been as close as I have, as I was to that one. So it was a very eye-opening thing. Unfortunately, it was raining heavily that weekend, and I have a high-end camera that I bought specifically for getting video and photographs of these crafts, because I think it's time that proof be shown, and I really need to show people, so maybe people will pay more attention and the truth will eventually come out. But
eventually it will. But keep in mind, we live in the age of digital manipulation. You're always
Right.
going to have skeptics no matter what you do and how good your images are, but by all means, pursue your dreams and your goals here, because you may come up with something that...
Well, I tell you, my goal is high-definition video proof, and I will not be afraid to share it unedited right out of the camera with whomever, as long as it's not taken and abused or, you know.
Don't let anyone take it, period.
Yeah.
No, don't let anyone borrow it, because you'll never see it again.
But I tell you, Jeff, if I do get something, you and Brian will be the first to know and the first to show it.
Well, that's very nice of you. Thank you. So at this point, philosophically, you're not afraid of them.
I've come to accept them. I have no choice in the matter.
Yeah, no, it's an understandably fatalistic view. You don't.
Yeah.
You expect these things to continue right on through? You have a sense that that's just the way it's going to be for you?
I have a feeling that things are going to get even more active. And I tell you, I have so many more close encounters that we didn't even touch on. I mean, apparently 3 hours isn't enough time, but, you know, maybe another time I'll be able to share more with you.
Well, you're more than welcome to come back and do that. Indeed. Have you run across other people who have had anywhere near the number of events you've had, or just some of your friends who have had a few things?
I became friends with a very good friend of mine now. She lives in Scotland, and she pointed out that she had seen many crafts much the same as what I had years before. Hers happened when she was very young. And it made me realize that this is happening all over the world, and it's been taking place for so long, and I was certainly not alone in it, as I felt for years and years all alone with nobody to talk to and share with.
What's really refreshing, Todd, is to have someone like you of your stature, and you obviously have a great deal of personal integrity, come on and talk about these things, and not say that you feel like you've been tabbed by them to tell us the truth or to be an ambassador. Boy, that nothing turns me off quicker than when I hear somebody say, yes, I am an intergalactic ambassadorial appointee.
No, I'm a realist, and I always step back and try and think things logically before I jump into the water head first, but after being involved in so many things throughout my lifetime, and especially since 2002 to the present, when activity has been very heavy for me, I really have no choice but to share with people. It's something that the people must be aware of, because it's happening to so many people everywhere, and I know I'm not alone, and that's part of why I'm sharing so much with people, so maybe they will come out and share too, and see that they aren't alone either.
Sure. Very good. Well, Todd, thank you very much for this, and when you are invited back, I'd like to cover some more of your encounters, and we'll do that. In the meantime, if they ever make an overture to you about inviting a friend along, you've got Brian's number.
Right, you bet.
He wants to take a ride.
No, yeah. Hey, we'll invite old Planet Blogo down there, too, to come with us.
Yeah. So, Todd, thanks very much. Continued success in life to you, and it sounds like you have generally a very happy life, and that's great.
Well, you make the best of what you have, no matter how little or how much it is.
Perfectly said. Yep, indeed. Thanks, Todd. We'll talk to you again.
Thank you very much, Jeff, and thank you, Brian. It's been an honor.
You're welcome. Thank you, Todd. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
You bet. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Well, that's not easy to do, folks.
No, it isn't.
To do 3 hours, 41, 42 minutes an hour of radio telling about things that have happened to you, and you
had quite a bit to go through too.
Yeah. Well, you hear in the sound of his voice, you hear the truth, you hear credibility. It's all there. You can tell.